Oh,
Oh, that was me, but it's off.
it's okay. No, it's like it's okay. Trust me, it's something like it's okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh, I'll tell you. Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. So let me just do that. Because I saw that. I was waiting. Okay. All right. My beautiful ladies, we're coming up. Nope. And oh, we're actually up. Okay. Oh. 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 Hello, everybody. Okay. Oh. Hey, Bernadette. Hey, Snowman. Hey, RJW. Sending you all so much love. We're coming up in 5. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Post election 2025. We thought it was 2026, but it's actually 2025. And I would say, even more than Democrats, populists had a really, really great moment. And we need to talk about that because that will take us not in just into 2026. We're in a moment already. We've got a government shutdown. We don't know when it's going to end. It's the longest one in history. And I don't see an end in sight. Maybe somebody else on the panel does. Jane Ruby, the League of Women Voters of Chicago, and the president emeritus of the National Organization of Women, Attorney Terry O'Neill, Ariel Gold, former executive director of the Fellowship of Reconciliation, brilliant, brilliant organizer, someone who drags me to the DNC meetings. I love it. I do. That having been said, this was not as simple as Democrats versus Republicans, because indeed the plurality of Americans are independent. And I would put in the independent space the Democratic Socialists, Libertarians. A lot of people are in that space. They don't want to be put in a slot. What we did see, we saw the media really trying to fit the Mamdani win and the valiant run of Senator Fateh in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and these black women who won. We have a Muslim American. I mean, we had a lot of things going on with them trying to reestablish Confederate monuments, with a time of rising nationalism. And I'm not going to call it Christian nationalism because this has nothing to do with Jesus, just as, Judaism has nothing to do with Zionism. It's just good old fashioned racism. It's baked in the cake, everybody. And yet Americans are still going another way. We are opening our minds to, yes, I would even say in Virginia, you had a white woman and a black woman running. And they were both serious contenders. That means a lot. Don't take that for granted. I certainly do not. Because as a little girl, watching Pat Schroeder try to run for president was a big deal. Watching Billie Jean King defeat Bobby Riggs, for me, was a big deal. Don't take these moments for granted. Having populists be taken seriously. Well, I had Bernie Sanders on my show some years ago, and I had a fun little union between Senator Sanders and Reverend Jesse Jackson. And he said, Santita, a lot of people, as they're calling in, they're giving Reverend a lot, they're giving him credit correctly for breaking the color barrier in politics. He said, but he did something even more weighty for me because he opened the door for white progressives like me. Before his candidacy, I had no space. And when you look at this book that Abby Phillips of CNN has written, she talks about that. She said, no, when you look at President Obama, of course you see Reverend, but you've got to see Senator Sanders. You've got to see AOC. You've got to see Mamdani. You've got to see Omar Fateh. You've got to see it's a new world. The day that he announced, and it was 42 years ago this week, November 3rd, 1983, he said, as of this day, nothing will be the same. And it has not been. And so we're in a new reality. And now, as we're watching the government shut down, I think we have been talking, and I want us to continue to push the issue. ACA is not the way. We need Medicare for all.
Yes,
You need to push for that. While we're in this moment, let's push for not what we want, kind of, sort of. We need to get what we need. No one should ever again have to deal with issues of affordability. If you want to ask why we are going to have a Mayor Mamdani in New York, it is that reason. New York is a great city. I love it. I lived there. And it is home for me in many, many ways. It is also absolutely it is unaffordable. But so is Chicago. More in America is becoming very unaffordable for Americans. And so when you talk about affordability, you get called a socialist, a communist, and on and on and on. Although in the land of the free and the home of the brave and free speech, you're supposed to be able to be whatever it is that you want to be. So let's talk about yesterday, because yesterday was a big day. Shout out to Mary Sheffield. Her father, Reverend Dr. Horace Sheffield has been a civil rights leader for many, many years. She is the first Black woman to be mayor of Detroit. I mean, a lot of things happened. A lot of things happened yesterday. And we need to talk about it. So I want to know, what your thoughts are. What about yesterday? Because as we are looking at this moment, and I'll start with you, Attorney Terry O'Neill, because you've been part of these pioneering campaigns. And and Ariel and Jane, I don't want it to be lost on us as we are despairing in this moment. Some of us are, and I understand it. We need to say, wait a minute, at the same time, some really, really great things are happening. And I think we need to celebrate those too. But not just because I've got women and Black people and blah, blah, blah. I'm saying because they're standing for something that we need. Right? So, Attorney Terry O'Neill, what did you make of these results yesterday? They're making it all about the Democrats. And I said, wait a minute, it's a little bit more than that, because that's not what people were doing. Attorney O'Neill?
Well, Santita, yeah, I mean, look at what happened in New York City. That was an election of Democrats versus Democrats, right? Andrew Cuomo is a Democrat, has always been a Democrat. His father was a Democrat, Mario Cuomo. I mean, this was a man who ran. He didn't win the Democratic primary, but he ran as a Democrat who then reached out to MAGA and he realized his real base of support was with people who are okay with sexual harassers and fraudsters who caused the deaths of many seniors during the pandemic. But the point is, he is and was a Democrat, and he was opposed by Zohran Mamdani, another Democrat. Which I think is really incredibly important. And I've been looking for statistics on the sort of the breakdown of how the voters went. And you can never get the cross tabs that I always want. Like, I want to see on race and gender and other measures, how people voted. But I did see a statistic that 84% of young women of all races, is just on sex, 84% of young women voted for Zohran Mamdani for mayor of New York. I mean,
he got 52% of the Black vote. He got more than 30% of the Jewish vote. I mean, in New York City. While, I mean, the attacks upon him reminded me so much of the attacks upon Reverend in 84 and 88. Because I remember when then Mayor Koch said, Jews would be crazy to vote for Jesse Jackson. But we won the city.
That's right.
And we said, okay, we didn't win. Reverend said that night, we didn't win the state, but we're going to come back and take the city. And that's what we did a year later.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And so I'm on Substack. I follow a number of journalists on Substack, including a group of journalists calling themselves the Contrarian. They're very centrist. They're quite corporate, but they're smart, and I follow them. Oh my goodness, they were trying so hard today to say that this was a win for the corporatists. This was not a win for progressives. Mamdani is just New York. It's just different. It's not like anything else. It's he really means nothing. What means everything is Abigail Spanberger, the military woman, and Mikey Sherrill, who also is really a centrist. That they're the future of the Democratic Party, and a lot of reasons why I disagree with that. But one of the things that
please illuminate, because
okay,
because they were doing that last night, and I want you all to think about that, Jane and Ariel, when you talk about that, because the Democrats who would not endorse Mamdani, and they absolutely threw Senator Fateh under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the way and he still got more than 30% of the vote.
Right. Yes.
But they did throw him under the bus. He won the nomination, and then they took it from him.
Yeah.
And then they tried to act like he did not exist.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the strategy of rich people who can always pretend that people who are not rich, just simply don't exist. But one of the things that I liked about the Mamdani campaign, when he talked about if there are food deserts in New York, that's a market failure. A big multinational or a big national food chain goes into a neighborhood, maybe a lower income neighborhood, and pushes out, competes out all of the mom and pop grocery stores, right? So now they're the monopoly in that neighborhood. And what happens after a couple of 3 years? That national chain is not making enough profit for the hedge fund owners or the equity firm, whatever, the Wall Street. It's not making enough. They're not extracting and exploiting enough in that store. So what does the national chain do? It closes that store, and poof, you've got now a food desert in that neighborhood, because all the mom and pop shop stores have been forced out by the big national firm. What do you call that? You call that a market failure. And that's what Mamdani kept pointing out. He said market failure a couple of times, but this morning I really thought, oh, this is what we do when there's a market failure. And what we really need to start looking at is, if I am making $7.25 an hour, that's the minimum wage in the entire state of Tennessee. If I'm making $7.25 an hour, I can't even come close to paying my bills. The basic survival wage for a single parent with one child is close to $84,000 a year in Davidson County, in Nashville, where I live. The cheapest county in this state is something like $35,000 a year for one parent and one child, just to scrape by, with no savings for vacation, no savings for your own retirement, no savings to put your kid through college, just the basics. It's $35,000 a year. If I can't make it with one child on $35,000 a year in Dixon County, Tennessee, that's a market failure. Now, what do we do when the market fails us? We have government to step in and make things right. That's the role of government. Even if you accept capitalism, which I no longer do, that's another whole conversation. Even if you accept that we live in a white, racist, patriarchal, capitalist society, if I'm not making it on one job, then that's a market failure. And fundamentally, even in that capitalist type of society, government exists to step in whenever there's a market failure. And I think that the Democratic Socialists of America are beginning to make that point. I think a lot of people, 84% of young women, have figured that out. And my hope is that this is an indication of where people are going to push politicians beginning now.
Well, and I think that is the thing to do, Ariel. It's about pushing the politicians, but the politicians the parties kept trying to pull the people. I mean, after Mamdani won, Senator Fateh won. I mean, what's been happening is just, oh, don't worry about it. It's one of those things. I mean, come on, it's live. You see them. I mean, Senator Schumer, the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, I'm sure he voted for Cuomo. And he didn't, because he wouldn't say who he voted for. I'm like, come on. You were shouted down on your book tour. Do you not get it? You've got problems, Chuck Schumer. What's up? It's a different day for everybody, Ariel. For everybody. You know, it's a terrible thing when you can't read the room, when things have changed on you. That's one thing I've learned from Reverend Jackson. He said, honey, oh baby, always remember, you've got to learn to read the room. You need to know where people are. I understand that. So what did you, I mean, what was your takeaway yesterday? I mean, particularly in New York, Ariel.
Oh, yesterday was a good day for America, and it was a good day for the world, right? I know a lot of us worried after he took the primary, and we said they are going to throw every dollar and every ugly smear and every Islamophobic garbage they can at him. And they did. Boy, did they ever. They went all out in all of those ways, and he took the city. And, you were saying, I was thinking about, you were saying, this isn't really the Democratic Party. Well, this can be the Democratic Party, right? I mean, even let's face it, the Republican Party wasn't what it is today a few years ago. It's now a MAGA party. But if the Democratic establishment can figure out how to read the room and stop trying to give us joy campaigns with Liz Cheney, we could really get somewhere. This is, I heard somebody say today, like, less consultants, more grassroots, right? This is what we need. And this is where it wasn't just that Mamdani won. Amazing, just amazing that he won. But the voter turnout in New York was one of the best on record. And that
Since
means people
1969?
cared.
I mean,
Yes.
Ariel, what?
And that was a really particular moment, but people cared. People cared about what Mamdani brought, and they also were done with Cuomo. I mean, we should all be done with Cuomo at this point. Even when he entered the race, I thought, what hole did you crawl out of,
Well, he was lifted. So let me ask you this. Because a lot of people, when they do these man on the street interviews, I pay a lot of attention to that, man and woman on the street. And they would ask voters, Cuomo voters, Ariel, okay, for whom did you vote? Cuomo. And they would be, well, he has experience, and it's not like he got the most enthusiastic of votes.
No,
right?
He did not, because, come on, it's Cuomo.
I'm talking about reading the room, because the leadership in the Democratic Party in New York would not endorse the Democratic nominee.
No, they wouldn't.
Why?
They wouldn't. Well, we've got all our answers right there, right? I mean, this is a real kick to the establishment. It really, really is. It's populism, and it's democratic socialism, and it's people that are fed up with where our country has gotten, including on the false accusations of anti-Semitism and the suppression of the movement for Palestinian rights. People are just done. This was taking place, like as the establishment and Cuomo were said, Trump and everybody was saying, like, if Mamdani wins, there were the Jews are going to be all under attack, and it'll be another 9/11. And I hear the ADL today has launched a Mamdani tracker.
The ADL, the JDL tracked Reverend, and they had we said run Jesse run. They said ruin Jesse ruin. I was having a flashback.
Right, but so while this was happening, in the same day as this is happening, or same week, same time period this is happening, Tucker Carlson hosts overt Nazi Nick Fuentes on his show. And then the Heritage Foundation, Project Esther and Project 2025, they go ahead and defend Fuentes and say, no, he's part of our tent, and we all love him, and there's the fallout is just everywhere from that. So that's happening. While an actual proud to be a self-avowed Nazi has joined the MAGA mainstream, because that's really what this means. It really means we are now in the MAGA mainstream. While that's happening, we have these ridiculous accusations against Mamdani based on nothing and completely ignoring his Jewish support, which for young Jews was, I think, 60 something, I forget if it was 64 or 67% in polling. We don't know the full we don't know the outcome numbers yet.
Because I'm quarreling like Terry, because they gave us such broad numbers.
Right. We don't know the number yet, but
no, I mean they didn't disaggregate enough, because I think young people were all aboard with Mamdani.
Yes, absolutely. And in the polling before, it was 67%, and exit polls aren't accurate anyway. So we're going to see the numbers, but completely just tone deaf and ignoring that. And so we're kind of in a new day right now. Both kind of things are good for us in some ways, because in the GOP, like the emperor is naked, right? We can all see, and so there's a couple people having tantrums in New York City, including the ADL. Jonathan Greenblatt's having a little temper tantrum.
A little.
But,
oh my God!
He launched a Mamdani tracker.
But what is the tracker
and a
going
hotline
to do?
for American Jews to call up and complain that they feel oppressed by Mamdani.
But Ariel, this is so crazy, because he's going to get on CNN and talk about it. I mean, that's what I mean. He'll get on TV. I mean, corporate media, and they will give him a platform.
They will, but the people aren't buying it anymore.
But Ariel, they're not. But Ariel, what are they tracking? Help me to understand. I don't get it. What are they tracking?
I don't know what they're tracking. I mean, it sounded like a mental health hotline that like people can call and be like, I don't like the mayor, and so I'm calling to log my complaint.
Ooh, okay.
Maybe we could call him and complain that he's got this friend named Brad Lander. And as we know, our good friend Tucker Carlson hates Brad Lander because he's Jewish. So let's get on there and track Mamdani with all these bad Jews that are supporting him, right? Yeah.
We all should call the ADL.
Exactly.
Like, there's an anti-Semite, but it's not Mamdani.
Please, they track me and try and take me out like they've been trying to do for the longest time. I mean, really, because you know what, but it's been a long time coming, because I can tell you you can ask Dr. Zogby. This is exactly what Reverend went through 40 years ago. And it was ugly. It was awful. And yet the message
he paved the road.
Well, but then we got Dave Dinkins in 89. I mean, wait a minute. It was, because I remember the night of the primary. He said, we did well. We didn't get the state, but guess what? We got the city. And people were like, yeah. He said, we're going to come back and we're going to be mayor in another year. People were like, yes. And guess what? That's what happened. And that's why I reached out to Senator Fonte, because I don't want him to feel that he lost. I'm like, wait a minute. These people took the nomination from you. Now, but you are viable. Now you have a platform. People see you. You have bona fides you did not have before. So now,
and he lost by a sliver. He really lost by.
You know what? He didn't lose. And I'm not going to say that Mayor Fry won, because you win in the caucus. Yeah. And they take it from you. I look at this, there's a song, yield not to temptation, for yielding is sin. Each victory will help you, some other to win. Fight manfully onward, dark passion subdue. He is willing to help you. Jesus will carry you through. These little songs that I used to sing, you mindlessly sang them in church. I know you did that when you were in temple. You're like, I don't even know what this is about, but I'll roll with it. My parents are making me come. Now, now I get it because because even with Mamdani, people they had written him off until a few weeks before the primary. Remember, it's
Yep.
just he started when people looked around and said he is. I'm getting to you, Jane. I want you to unmute yourself. When people saw that it was not just a possibility, that it was not just a probability. Like, no, no, this can happen. Everybody jumped on board. And I'm wondering if that will happen with policy, Ariel, because everybody's saying, oh, free buses. He just wants free stuff. One of my dear friends, who's way to the right of me, she's way to the right of just about everybody I know. She said, everybody wants this free stuff. And I'm just tired of it. And I said, you do know how expensive New York is. You can't even fly in the United States right now because many of our control towers are not staffed. Not because the people are on a sick out. They can't put gas in their cars. They can't afford to ride the bus or the train to get to work. I mean, are you serious right now? Oh. And then you're going to hear growling stomachs when you get up in there anyway because people can't eat. Oh, Jane. Well, I'm going to send Ariel right back to Temple. And she's going to learn. I want you to go to the cantor and learn some songs and bring them back. I want you to give them to me like I give you mine. but Jane, what did you, I mean, because Jane, I'm saying charitably, ladies, Jane is of another generation. So no, really. So you tell me no, but I think it's important for all of us because we're all of different ages and different life experiences. And so we see these things from a lot of different spaces and places. That's what I love about having these conversations because Terry brings something, you bring something, Ariel, and Jane, you're bringing something too. Because we have our Mom Donnie in Chicago with Brandon Johnson, who, I mean, he went from like 1% name recognition to being mayor in one cycle. Right. And then when he got in trying to be progressive and humane, he got kicked in the teeth by the people who supported him. And I can expect that from Mamdani. And I want to, what did you make of last night? Let's just start there, Jane.
Yeah, I've been following the New York race for a while. I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised. So, for me, I was paying attention not just because this is, my life and my upbringing, but also, I very much related to Mamdani and what he was bringing to the table. Like he was exactly like we're in the same generation growing up in New York. Between sort of the 9/11 generation of kids that were really traumatized between sort of a different New York before 9/11 and a New York after 9/11, and to sort of be inspired by progressive, not in the party sense, but progressive in the policy sense and human dignity and taking care of each other and policies around peace. Like, these are things that are inherent to our generation and how we were raised in Upper West Side Manhattan. So with that, like I was obviously paying a lot of attention, and I think the messenger is so important to the movement, to any movement, and I think we have such strong messengers for a innovative, progressive movement. But I also think that there was a lot of other wins in terms of policy and also sort of technicality for how we think of how democracy works. New York, not only their primary is done through ranked choice voting, which is an incredibly inclusive way to vote, and more places should be using ranked choice voting. We have a campaign in Chicago for municipal elections for ranked choice voting right now that we're trying to get worked on, but also campaign finance reform. New York has this incredibly strong program that has been around for decades around small donor matching. So candidates, you get a lot of younger progressive candidates in cities like New York because of how they're able to buy into this public option for campaign financing, where you don't have to be bought by billionaires to run for office. And we saw in the primary, you know, Mamdani maxed out on the public donor matching program very quickly, you know, going into the primary. And that was incredible to see. It was grassroots, small donor dollars funding his campaign. And I think that, you know, yes, the messenger was incredibly important, but also, you know, who was funding the campaigns? You know, we have a massive campaign finance problem here in this country. We have foreign money that buys many of our elections. We have billionaires who think they can buy our elections. The idea that, you know, me donating $20 to someone feels so insignificant when you have millions being pumped into people's campaigns by special interests, that it's like, you know, really reclaiming the power of the people, reclaiming the ability that, you know, you get 30 people donating $10, that's $300, and that can be equally as powerful as someone who gives someone $8 million for their mayoral campaign. Like, we really have to shift the mindset in how we think about money in politics, how we think about how we actually run our elections, and innovative ways where people feel like their vote isn't wasted, like a ranked choice voting model. We have to also, like, a big thing that, you know, I think we're really on the cusp of is class solidarity. We need to get to a point where, you know, and normally in history, whenever you bring up class, whenever you bring up economics, you get called a Marxist, you get called a communist, you get called a socialist, like, you get called an enemy of capitalism. But what we're really seeing is people coming together from all kinds of backgrounds saying there are things that are unfair. There are things that need to be equal, and a basic foundational human right that people should have in order to live a dignified, healthy, safe life for themselves and their families. And we're having those real conversations about what that looks like. You know, yes, Mamdani is a man, but I also think his win, you could argue, is a win for women. His platform,
Why do you say that?
incredible policies around, you know, expanding childcare for people in New York City, which would be a huge economic empowerment thing for women in particular. Education systems in New York, transportation, all of these things are women's issues too. And the platforms that he was promoting as, you know, core to what he was trying to do in New York, all of those policies benefit women overwhelmingly. And, you know, that's in the same way, you know, we've spoken a lot about your father, like Reverend Jackson's platform. You know, yes, he is a man, and, you know, and he has, you know, he's a guy, but he's also a champion for women. And that's something to also, like, men can be champions for women. Men can be advocates for women in huge ways. And we also need men to be along on our journey as we, you know, liberate more women, as we advocate for the ERA, as we, you know, build out policies that affect women. You know, men benefit from that system too. And the ones that have been the visionaries in history, in American history, have really sort of seen the power of women. Like Mamdani's transition team is all women from a very diverse group of backgrounds. Like, that's so cool, just as like a win for women.
Well, you know, and he wants people, you know, one of the things that I really appreciate about him, and this new wave, because I heard it with Senator Shafate as well. They want their wives to be acknowledged for who they are as human beings. You know, he says, you know, he amplifies the fact she said she's a great artist in her own right. So I don't put my wife up under me. She's by my side, and she steps off to the side where because she is defining how she's going to approach this, and I appreciate that, and I respect that. And, you know, that's why, you know, look, so much has changed. And I mean, what you were saying really resonated with Ariel and Terry snapping the fingers. But I mean, look, I'm not mad at you. Open up the mics, everybody, because we can really talk with and through each other. Because it's why was this resonating so profoundly with you, Ariel, Terry?
Well, yeah, because there aren't those degrees of separation. Yes, he is a man, and yes, we still have so many miles to go in dismantling the patriarchy, but he's also of the people, and he also is part of women aren't a minority, but women you know what I mean, deal with oppression and in the same way that minorities. So a success for him is a success for women, just like it's a success for so many other minorities than Mamdani is himself.
Absolutely. I mean, Terry, what was
I just
he
want to
saying
go,
that resonated?
I want to go all intersectional here. And I think a lot of the reason why Reverend did so well in 1984 and 1988 was specifically because he refused to run a campaign that was just about African Americans or just about poor people or just about this group or that group or the other. I think Reverend has always really been very much in touch with ordinary people, right? And each one of us as individuals, we all contain multitudes. And with that understanding, you know, there are women may be extremely ambitious and also extremely socially conscious and very dedicated to social justice, but really want to be heard and want to move forward in a career. You have all these different layers of types of people, whereas theoreticians, you know, political theorists, political scientists, they take this more abstract view, you know, of people, where we're kind of divided up according to what we look like, and therefore what we must think like, how we must think and approach problems. So yes, the reason that this is so important to women, it's something that I've said, you know, pretty much throughout my career. Women work a lifetime at unequal pay. Women work a lifetime at unequal pay, and that is why universal childcare is so important for women. We are far more likely than men to have responsibility for caring for children, right? We are far more likely than men, significantly more likely than to have responsibility, and I'm talking financial as well as caring responsibility for our elders.
That's right.
Now, what does that mean? That means that we are paying out of pocket for these things. Oops, but we work in jobs where you're much less likely to have a healthcare program, right? So we don't have health benefits. We're paying out of pocket for our own health, for our children's health, for our elders' health, and we're getting less wages systematically than men do. Well, what does that mean? That means that at the end of the week, we have less money in our pocket. And what does that mean in terms of our ability to save for our own retirement, for our children's college, for an emergency that might cost $500? It's very difficult for women to do that. Now, when you start looking at how this happens to women, what you find very quickly is that the reason for all of this is because women cluster in jobs that don't have 401k programs, they don't have pensions, and they don't have healthcare programs. Why? It's healthcare, you know, licensed practical nursing and elder care and childcare, those jobs, and then also in restaurant jobs, you know, hospitality, that's where women cluster. And then you look at it a little more carefully and you say, and it's disproportionately women of color who are in these positions. So to really try to understand sort of women as a group, we need to look at the reality of women's everyday lives, you know, and how we negotiate that. Zohran Mamdani, maybe it's because of his age, maybe it's because he grew up in the Upper West Side and he really saw all these different, you know, different people from many different backgrounds. But he truly seems to understand this reality, the everyday reality of so many women's lives. You know, in a way, compare that to J.D. Vance, whose wife is an appendage. All due respect to her.
And he wants her to change religions.
Right, because she's his appendage. Of course, he wants her to be a good appendage. You know, he's got a third arm, and when he shapes that third arm. Of course, it is. She's not a fully realized, complex, contradictory,
Look,
ordinary
I'm the black
human
woman
being.
here. I look, she's Lil Brown for MAGA. Okay,
Yeah.
let's keep it 100. Look,
And that's true.
That's not working. No. I mean, look, if we're gonna have a conversation, and I think we're all sisters here. Jane is the daughter, but with love. I mean, no, look, in my tradition, I am your auntie, and I'm all right with that. I am not the old chick at the club. I don't go to clubs. So I'm an elder, and that's it. But I'm just saying, because she looks sadder and sadder all the time. And when you see her, it's like how she went from, because there's a whole psychology of being white and being white adjacent.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so when you see her, I can only imagine what she is hearing, seeing, and feeling in her encounters. Because that's just, look, that's real. If we can't have that conversation here, where can we have it? It's just like going someplace and acting as if we're not treated some kind of way because we're women. That's real. We all do. I mean, and when you're talking about lost wages, black women, the average black woman loses $1 million over the course of her work life.
What could you do with $1 million?
Like retire. Right? I mean, what? I might be able to help my mother, my father. I mean, get people to college. I might be able to live in a place I might be able to get my food. I mean, it's just all of this stuff. So when I don't have centrist problems. No American does. So when you want to give me a centrist politician who is being paid by foreign countries and big pharma and big farms and you want to tell me why you can't give me Medicare for all and why I can't get, but you can give $5 trillion worth of tax breaks to people who are already wealthy. Their wealth grew by more than $700 billion. The people who were just at the inauguration. Are you serious?
Exactly.
I don't have centrist problems. I have real problems. Yeah. I have sticker shock. I went on the exchange, everybody. And my eyes, I said, oh my gosh, I need to get another job. This is, really. So, and so it is insulting when I look at India Walton up in Buffalo, New York, because the Democrats threw her under the bus. They did this with the senator in Minneapolis. They did this with Mamdani. He was just able to come on through. And I'm talking about how do we fight for another kind of politics? And I saw someone, they were talking about. You said Hakeem Jeffries Wood by not endorsing Mamdani. Look, this is when what's being uncovered, Ariel, is who really controls our politics. You see that the donor class, George Clooney writes an op-ed piece and all of everything starts coming apart. We've been talking about Biden speculating about his health for a couple of years. But someone who raises a lot of money is able to get to write and get something in the New York Times. And that unplugs him because he's a donor. Not because of what these are the same people. This is the same party that unplugged the primary process. They're blaming Kamala. Oh, she ran a horrible campaign. Kamala was told by Joe Biden, number one, you got to take my people because I'm on top of this money. I raised it. It's my money. And then she had all of his people who she had to take who did not like her. He calls her for a debate. She thinks she is going to get a word of encouragement, bless her heart. And he said, no daylight, kid. She was like, wait a minute, what? Yeah, no daylight. She couldn't deviate from her boss's position because remember, while she's running for president, he's still her boss.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I mean, just as we are looking at, because I think there's a lot to celebrate, but there's a lot for us to move. We've got to move towards something new.
Yep.
Yeah. Because the government is still shut down. And I'm trying to figure out how we're going to get out of this, because I think that if the Democrats cave on health care, that would be disastrous for all of us.
Absolutely.
Why,
Absolutely.
why does that resonate with you, Ariel?
Because healthcare is, I mean, you're just talking about like real life issues and something people cannot afford. And the ACA was never sufficient. And we just can't go backwards from this crappy position we were already in. And we need a Democratic Party with some spine.
Absolutely.
And that's a low bar. It's a low bar to say we need to keep the same inadequate health care that we've got.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, 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 right. Yeah.
Low bar.
It
And
is
we're going to
inadequate.
want to keep food stamps or SNAP still flowing so that children can eat. It's a low bar.
And even if we get SNAP benefits moving forward, the bill that they passed, you know, the only parts of the bill that the Democrats are sticking on right now, strategically they chose this, was the cuts to the ACA premium subsidies and the cuts to Medicaid. But included in the bill that they are not dying on a hill for is the cuts to SNAP, right? So food stamps are going to be cut just terribly under that bill, if and when the government gets back on track.
And you know, they've been cut for years and for decades.
Yeah,
Sometimes, and I got SNAP to get through graduate school, and my mother who lives with me, we gave up on SNAP because it was so little, but she got SNAP, and every year you'd get a letter in the mail. It's going to be this much lower and this much lower. And let me tell you, no year ever did it go up.
Right.
And then we have the like work requirements. So if we go all the way back to when food stamps actually were provided some safety net, provided a decent safety net, it's been downhill since then all along.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, food stamps are good for farmers too.
Yeah.
It really was a program that was designed to be both good for farmers so that they could sell their produce when the market failed, when there's a market failure and the price of selling the food was lower than the cost of producing the food. So the farmer did well. The federal government would buy that food at a good price in the face of a market failure and take that food and give it to people whose, again, a market failure, whose wages were not enough to be able to allow them to feed themselves. If wages are that low, the market has failed. And government needs to, and that's why food stamps was such a great solution. And it brought together conservatives, that is the farming community, with liberals, you know, the social justice people, brought them together and had this great program. And you're absolutely right, you know, Ariel, it has been attacked and attacked and attacked by who? By white patriarchal capitalists who can't stand the idea of government going in and seeing a failure, a market failure, and doing something smart to fix it.
Even as these people, they make their money off of government contracts. Let's get clear. What are we talking about here? So, you know, I only have about 5 or 6 minutes left here. But, you know, let me start with you, Jane. Upper West Side. I was on the Upper West Side for a minute, and then I moved to Harlem. Harlem, USA. Yes, 82nd and Columbus. That's where I was. Loved it.
You were very close to me. We probably walked by each other on the street at some point.
Bless your heart, when you were in nursery school. Yes, that's right. Bless your heart. And I loved it. Well, I mean, you know, and I really did enjoy it. But when I moved to New York, well, as a little girl, I read about the Harlem Renaissance, and I always wanted to live in Harlem. And I was so excited to move there. And I was excited to live in New York because it's such a vibrant place. And it's good to see a mayor-elect who reflects the community. I mean, there's more to New York, oh my gosh, than Manhattan.
That's right.
I mean, it is such a rich place. And but there's so much more to America than what we have seen. And I think last night we saw that this is such an incredibly rich nation. It really is. You know, whatever our issues are, I love this country. I really do. And I push it because I know that it can be great. Not again, it can be great. It can really be, it can live out the full meaning of its creed. And I'm not going to stop until America gets to where it's supposed to be. Not going to stop. And we can't stop. We can't. Jane, what's your takeaway from last evening and just going forward? Because I think we've got many more people like that to elect as mayors, county commissioners, state legislators, to the U.S. House of Representatives, to the U.S. Senate. And quite frankly, we need to have them in the cabinet. We need to have them in the presidency, vice presidency. They should be everywhere. That's what America really is. That's what America is needing. You know, someone who's talking about affordability, who you know, who really supports marginalized people, who sees everybody's worth, everybody's value. So, what is your takeaway from election 2025? Please, we haven't even gotten to 2026.
I know 2026 feels like so far in the future, but it'll be here before we know it. You know, I think, and we talk about this all the time on your show. I think the fact we have strayed so far from empathy and compassion for, taking care of one another is just so wild. I have a poster in my house from Richard Nixon's reelection campaign, and like, he's bragging about spending more on domestic services than foreign entities. And that was and he's like standing with a little boy, and that's the slogan above him. And I'm like, and I love that concept, and it's so eerie that it's a Richard Nixon campaign poster that's bragging about it. But it's like, that concept shouldn't be, it's not a partisan issue. It is a everybody issue. The idea that, we all thrive when people are fed, when people are educated, when people have proper access to hygiene, when people have a roof over their head, when they're able to have air conditioning when it's hot and heat when it's warm. We all can thrive. There is enough money. There is enough resources to take care of everyone. And the idea that it is just so consolidated at the top and it's not dispersed in a way that, rich people, they can still have their wealth, but with everyone being taken care of, they're still going to thrive. And, we really need to get back to that as kind of a foundational concept. It's very rooted in, all of the faiths of, taking care of each other. And, I think coming out of this election cycle, we're really starting to see that conversation shift as to, what are some things that are not negotiable anymore? What are some things that, before it was sort of transactional between elected officials and the voters? Like, what are voters willing to give up in exchange for, promises or, legislation by elected officials where there's, negotiation, where it was like, we'll take half, we'll take the Affordable Care Act, and it's not, full healthcare being provided, but it's good enough. We'll accept that. It used to be, there was much more negotiation. We don't need to negotiate like that anymore. There are things that we need as people, and we don't need to settle for half-assed, promises, for half-assed actual deliverables anymore. And I think, that's really the momentum we need to keep going, because, elected officials are going to change over time, term limits, for whatever reason, but the foundational principles of what we as the voters, as the collective bloc, need to be steadfast and strong as the path forward, where we need to decide, what are things, not just as women, which is, the majority of the country is women, there's priorities we should all be aligned with on that, but just, all of us as voters, what are the things that we are not going to let go and not let have happen moving forward. We have to take care of the environment. We have to take care of each other. We have to ensure that children have access to education. All of these things can't be negotiated anymore.
Terry O'Neill, your final thought?
100% of everything that Jane just said. And I think we have to be very realistic. This is going to be a Democrat versus Democrat fight. We have to be ready to really mix it up with people that we love and people that we've worked side by side with for a very long time, and insist that, yes, there are some things that are not negotiable. People cannot go hungry. People cannot go without health care ever. People, non-negotiability, I think that absolutely is where we have to be. I think the people we have worked alongside, these centrist Democrats for all this time, I think they are movable, but they will only be movable if we are not. And we have to be strong, and we have to insist that, you want the votes, you have to be willing to do what's right. End of discussion. That's.
I'm going to run my own candidates, and you can either join me or not.
Yeah.
Because Mom Donnie was coming. And I hope Fateh keeps on coming. Because I'm not waiting for you. I'm not waiting for you to save me. My father says nobody will save us for us but us.
That's right.
We're good. I'm not waiting for you to present someone to me. As a matter of fact, I send the strong, you choose the weak. I'm very clear on that. I'm not going to have that. I'm going to send you who I tap. Let the people start sending some people. And they can be broke and they can have all kinds of troubles. But if they want to serve you, give them some grace and let them go on.
Yeah.
Let them go. No, nobody's perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Nobody is. So get over what people, debts folks owe, whatever their personal lives are. What does that have to do with you and what they will do for you when they get in office? That's all that really matters. Let it go. Let's stop playing these games here. I love you. I love you, Jane Ruby. I love you, Ariel, out there in cyberspace. I love you, Attorney Terry O'Neill. I love you. And let's talk about how the media have handled this in the next. Well, everybody, hop on over to the next hour of the Santita Jackson Show. If you ladies want to join, you're more than welcome to.
I wish I could, but I've got another thing that
I'm catching you in between, but it's all good.
All right.
The media.
Next time.
Always good to see you.
AM 950 Radio, everybody, the voice of progressive Minnesota.